Okay, hello and welcome to Final Animediate Evangelion episodes 14 to 20, which is the name of this podcast. So yeah, like it says on the tin, we watched 14 to 20. Episode 14 was a recap one. That started as a recap, and then you got the kind of introspective Ray bit. 15, Shinji visited the grave of his mother with Gendo, and we went to the club. 16, Shinji was succeeding, but then he got taken to therapy by a big zebra ball, which is also a shadow, but he came out at the end. 17, none of us know what happened in 17. 18, the other Ava's arriving, and it's Toji, and then the dummy plug thing happens. No one tells Shinji who the pilot is, so that was that one. 19 is just like the best episode of the show. It's pretty cool. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. And then 20 is just more therapy, but instead of being inside a big zebra ball, Shinji is turned into LTL, but then he comes back at the end. So yeah, they are the episodes we just watched. Me and Tony watching them for the second time, and Ethan and Johnny watching them for the first. So I think Ethan and Johnny, do you guys want to start talking about this series of episodes, if you liked it more or less than the previous ones?
Yeah, so I think I do like the way it's going now more than the first few, because it is sort of a bit more shaken up from that kind of monster of the week setup. It's playing more into questioning what's going on at Nerve, which I like. Yeah, it's sort of. It is ending up on a more interesting sort of narrative because you're looking a lot more at the conflicts between the characters and their internal conflicts. Much as it's slightly weird in the way that it sort of goes into some of it. Yeah, what are your sort of immediate impressions, Ethan?
I think it's definitely improved. I wasn't. I think as a recurring plotline, I wasn't such a huge fan of every episode they have to fight an angel and then they beat it and then everything's okay at the end of 20 minutes. I'm a much bigger fan of what's been going on at the moment, just because it feels like the plot is more fluid and sequential. It's not just it doesn't feel like each episode is self-contained like the first half of the show did. Of course things would carry on happening over a series of episodes, and not everything would be so finite. But a lot of the content and a lot of the conflict did feel that way. It would just be the characters would be going around doing their own thing. An angel would attack, they'd beat the angel, and then that would be it. But in these last 6 episodes or so, it feels like the plot threads are, happening over a bigger scale. It's not just neatly wrapped up by the end of each episode, and I do like that quite a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely a tone change in these episodes where they are less action heavy, but I still think the sort of action set pieces that are there are still really good. As Harry said, the one, I think it's episode 18, where there's again like a couple angels that show up and do have to be, punched really hard in an action fight scene. They're really good.
Yeah, I'm with you, but
well.
I think the main difference now isn't just an angel an episode. It's maybe an angel every 2 episodes, and that's already made a big difference for me, because all of a sudden those 20-minute spaces aren't being filled with Ava's fighting angels. There's a lot more background stuff, and finally some questions that you had are being answered, sometimes in really vague ways that don't really actually answer your question, but just ask new ones. But it's definitely trying to get to the heart of what the show's really about at the moment, so it's been a lot more interesting, I'd say, than the first half of the show, definitely.
Something I do want to count up is, I mean, it's been happening less now that there's less angels, but like every time there's an angel, it always cuts to the same establishing shot of the command room, with those like 3 maps kind of laid over each other, playing the same piece of music, and it's just like I've
good
been
tune.
here, we've done this.
It's also a meme because like the command center gets destroyed and they go to a new command center which is exactly the same.
Well, they built a spare. Come on, they planned ahead. Yeah, but I do see what you say. I think the fact that there are less angels per episode, their angel ratio goes down. They can spend a lot more of that time on, what is the heart of the show, which is the character like introspection, which is, the moments where Shinji is just literally stuck in his own brain for one reason or another, and just has to sit and like come to terms with who he is and all that stuff.
Yeah.
As well as setting up Kaji, which is a big player in this sort of arc.
But I would also say that it's not even just that you have more of the introspection and the depth that Neon Genesis does quite well. I actually think that it does also help those fights between the Avas and the Angels. Just having less of them, I think already does help in some way, because I know the 14th episode, half of it was a recap of all of the Angels, but I've already forgotten half of them. Whereas in the last 6 episodes, there have been a lot less. I know the first 12 episodes is twice the amount that we've just watched. I get that. But I also feel like so far the Angels that we've had since episode 14 have had really unique and memorable designs, and they've been, constructed in such a way that I think leaves that does leave an impact in the way that they interact with the Angels is also really unique. I feel like I don't want to come out and say that the first 12 episodes all of the fights were bad, because I don't think that. But I think their approach to beating the Angels, or coming into contact with them in the last 6 episodes, has just been more interesting. I think especially the one that Harry said, where there's an angel that kind of basically appears out of the ground and swallows up things, and its shadow isn't what's on the ground. Its shadow is the big ball in the air that's kind of black and white striped. And I think that's such a fantastic idea for an angel. Because all of a sudden it's not really this big mech suit looking alien thing. It's actually it's a lot more than that, and it causes the plot to move forward as well, because Shinji being inside of it does leave you with some some burning questions, actually. And especially the most recent fight that we've had, where, well, we'll get to it, I'm sure, where you basically find out that the mech suits are almost act as restraints for what's inside of them, which is
Yes, it's a great moment.
Yeah, it's an amazing moment, and it's I just think that the fights aren't so. In the first 12 episodes, it felt like when they would fight an angel, like I've said before, that'd be it. It would just be like, oh, okay, so that was another fight, and yeah, it was cool, and I enjoyed watching it, but there wasn't any long-term repercussions. But I feel like now every fight between the Angels and Nerve headquarters has led to some very, very great developments. I mean, don't you guys agree with that?
You can feel the kind of physical and like mental toll on the characters, and just like even like the Avas kind of being damaged. And like you say, they do have more of an impact because they've lessened the volume. It helps that some of the more creative ideas and designs are also in the structure of episodes we've just watched. I mean, 16 is one of the best Angels you get, because it's so kind of unique in its shape. It feels incredibly alien, and also what it does. Like you said, it takes Shinji to therapy. It kind of blends the action-oriented start of the show with the kind of introspective second half, and is really the turning point, I think, for kind of what the show is. I feel like in the first few episodes, they were almost written like, okay, we have a monster every week, and then we write the conflict around that. So like the conflict comes from each kind of monster, and each episode is written with the idea that it's going to get introduced kind of pretty much end of the first act, and they'll beat it by the third. Whereas these episodes, I feel like they wrote the characters first, and the angels only kind of come in to test the characters. So obviously, 18. The fact that it's kind of it's weird how Shinji doesn't know it's Toji. That's kind of like a meme, but no one tells him. But it has such a big character impact, that fight, and having in like. I remember in the first podcast, you guys were talking about the angels and the angel designs, and how you liked how at the start they seemed to mirror the Evangelions, but were kind of you like the more abstract designs less. Whereas this is an angel that literally is an Evangelion, which has someone Shinji's age in it, and it's such a great thing. Like when they're referring to it, they're like, the AV Unit 3, but then they're like correct themselves, be like, oh no, the angel. I think that's great. 19 again, it's a more kind of generic design, but that episode is all about Shinji and his kind of inner conflict, and kind of an angel has been introduced to kind of keep him there. It's pretty much the worst thing that could have possibly happened. And I think they're pretty much the only angels in the stretch of episodes. I think there's a lot of character stuff, a lot of plot. It really does. We really are in the second half of the show now.
Yeah, I think there's like as Harry was saying with how it's like Shinji's sent to therapy with that first episode. You know, the ball one. It starts off the sort of it's been mentioned earlier in the arc or in the show, but about how like they're like the scientists obsess over the sync rates of their pilots, and like Shinji's going above Asuka's is what causes her to go a bit mental. And then she in turn like puts that on to Shinji and is like, okay, well, and makes him go aggressive, and that's what puts him in the big shadow realm. And it comes around later on where his sync ratio goes to 400%. I didn't even know that could happen, and he gets turned into soup, which again gives you another like quiet moment where he's just got to sort of face like who he is and be like, okay, well, what am I trying to do here? Who am I? What do I want? All those big questions. He's got to essentially like try and find an answer for them. And I think he's coming towards some answers. Like I think the one that he's sort of clinging to at the moment is that he sees himself as just an Ava pilot. He's like, okay, well, I've got to do this. No one else can pilot Unit 1. It's got to be me. And I think that's where we left him. That's sort of what his jig was.
Yeah, and I think they do a really good job of giving him like an arc across this kind of these episodes. In the you have 15, which is kind of about his nervousness with meeting his father, and you kind of learn a little bit more about what happened with his mother, which is kind of like one of the big mysteries of the show. And obviously he got praised. The sync rates are up. You have 16, which kind of knocks his confidence a little bit. And then the entire kind of Toji, this kind of Toji saga, which kind of ends with him screaming, which is less good in English. Worse screaming. But yeah, that kind of really like, that's one of those Shinji screams that kind of like he kind of snaps. And then 19, which I just want to talk about 19 because it's so fucking good. You kind of have Shinji. He's like, he's gonna go beast mode. He's decided, he's snapped. This is enough. He's gonna take a stand. And we have a lot of echoes of episode 4 in the first half where he's walking away. You have that great shot of him being like handcuffed 3 times, talking to his dad in this like incredibly expressionistic room.
There's such a good shot where he is turned away from his dad, and he's got this stoic expression on his face, and his dad sitting in his big desk chair reflected on the floor. It looks like a Star of David. That's just sort of there in the background.
It's an incredible office. It's a really, really incredible office. So open, so spacious.
The least practical office as well.
Well, he moves everywhere by elevator, so he doesn't. It's not like the space is an issue to him.
I think like all of the rooms in Nerve are just like completely black, but they'll have like one symbol on the back of them. They are very like expressionistic spaces, for sure. But yeah, because of what happened in 18, again we'll talk about that. His dad's a pretty bad dude. Yeah, they've fallen out. he's going to leave, and then, like we say, you have that turning point where the alarm goes off halfway through the episode, and it's literally in the narrative a call to action, and it's the refusal to go. You have that Kaji scene, which is fantastic, in the garden. You have when he's in the bunker and Asuka's kind of Ava's head slams right in front of him, like he literally can't escape his fate. That dialogue scene, I think it is phenomenal between the two of them. It just kind of someone actually does what someone should have done a long time ago and told him, like, look, these are the stakes. You got to fucking go and fight this thing. And then he has to make a choice. And I love the piece of music that plays. I think the shot is really good of like the two of them with the kind of battle going on behind them. And all of this, it's almost like a bait and switch, because it's giving you a generic kind of heroic moment where Shinji he's gonna defy his dad. He's gonna go back. He's the pilot now because he has to be. He wants to be. It's not just because he's being told to. But then that kind of gets perverted. You have this really awesome action scene. He's gonna defeat the angel. Runs out of battery, and then something kind of really horrific happens. But it's also really awesome for the audience.
But for me, with Shinji, it's not just the choices that he makes over these 6 episodes that lead to very interesting developments. I feel like his personality is quite different. It's still obviously the base person. It's still Shinji, but there's something about his character that's so much more appealing than it once was. He used to be someone who, like we've said before plenty of times, is quite anxious and nervous and doesn't really commit to decisions very often. But in these last few episodes, it feels like he's gained... I think especially with the Toji stuff, he's gained like a sense of principle. And he's become a lot more assured and confident in his own actions. And seeing that play out is really satisfying. Because throughout the show... I wouldn't call him the most depressed character of all time, but he's hardly someone who sticks up for himself. And it's nice to see him defy his father's orders in a really, really monumental way. And to just see a series of episodes where he changes his mind on his own accord and does things his own way is just... It's really cool. I like that they did that a lot.
Yeah, there is a great moment where... It's where he's fighting the Ava or Angel that has Toji in it, and is mad because the central crux of that episode is he doesn't want to fight at that moment. He's willing to die so that he doesn't have to fight his presumably just someone his age in there. And when Ikari makes him, or Gendo rather, overrides him using the dummy plug system that they've been developing in the sort of background like testing moments in the show, and like overrides it and makes him fucking crush the unit 04, unit 03, whatever it is. There's that moment where he's mad and he says like, I've got 3 minutes left of battery life, that's enough to wipe out half of headquarters. It's like, where did Shinji come from? He's asserting something. He's saying like, hey fucker, I'm not, even though he is just like having like an outcry, he's still like sort of realizing that what he wants is important, which is there's a great like sort of mirror between those two fight scenes, the one where he refuses to fight and the one where he accepts the call because he wants to, and he goes sicko mode. His power like breaks out the crucial moment, but he doesn't need no emergency battery. He goes to that 400% synchro rate, becomes soup, and eats the angel, absorbing the S2 engine.
But in doing that, he like gets stuck like inside the Ava for like a month.
Yeah.
So even in his classic hero moment, where in like a more kind of like a worse anime, doing that, suddenly he's like now like a cool action hero, and you have 3 seasons of him like kicking ass and being a badass. Whereas Shinji's consequence for I guess like, I don't know, quote unquote manning up and like being the hero he's expected to be, his consequence is like the thing that he pilots becomes a monster, and he's stuck inside it for a month, and has to kind of like figure out who he is. So I think this could be the moment where the show kind of kicks on and becomes like a more action-oriented thing, But I love the consequence of this kind of really kind of heroic epic moment is actually to subvert it and kind of go even more introspective in the next episode and basically do episode 16 again, but really double down on it.
It's a random kind of related thing, but the first time I properly liked the kind of Ava designs is when Unit 1 rather, gets all bandaged up and has the sort of crazy teeth, smile, and eyes. Like,
such a monster.
The first time
It's
I've been
horrific.
like, that's a cool design.
Yeah, it's great because it's so monstrous. Like even the command staff at Nerve, whenever they see it like properly go mental, they just start throwing up. It's like, what is this hideous beast that we have to work with? And I think it's great. I think it's when it's all like mummied up and it's all like wrapped in bandages and it's got that core exposed. It's got loads of eyes everywhere and that big toothy grin.
It looks almost as monstrous as those as the giants from Attack on Titan. Like, they are horrible to look at.
And you can see that there's a very clear, lineage of monster design in anime that's, stretches really far back and really far forward, which is quite neat.
There are like a few kind of tricks that these episodes do, and when you kind of know I mean, we've already kind of mocked the structure of the show a little bit, but the fact that episode 16 and 20 are pretty much the same, but it's in episode 18 and 19, which are great episodes and work really well together, but they have the same construction in that it's like, okay, you got the reluctance and then the action scene at the end, and then we learn something new about the Ava. That song with the electric guitar comes in. The Nerve HQ staff like react horrifically, and people go, "So this is the secret behind this," and that's how both of those episodes end. 18's is good, with the dummy plug, but 19's is really special. Like I kind of wanted to end on this episode because it's such a powerful and like a good cliffhanger, but I thought 20 does kind of resolve it. The line like the restraints is just like, it's so delicious,
It's such a like a context like flip on its head of like the fact that like the power and the armor this whole time hasn't been to keep the Ava safe. It's been to keep us safe from the Ava. It's just like they're mad because absorbing the S2 engine means that it now, if it works, like won't need power. It will just go forever.
The body language of Unit 1 as well. Like when I first watched the episode,
yes.
I was like I think they do a good job of like it's like a very iconic action figure, and you see a lot of shots of it. But there is something alien and obscure, and it's almost the camera doesn't show you the full thing. But it's the first time it really kind of shows you everything, and the way it kind of hunches over, crawls like a beast, Other great lines, they talk about, Sela won't take this line down, was this part of your plan? She's awake, another great line. What could that mean? There's just so many great mysterious lines. I watched it again with Ethan in English, and the English is good. But there's something about hearing the Japanese voices, and just the line is just like the restraints, the power of God has awoken and stuff. It's just it's so mysterious and cool.
Yeah.
It really does peak at this point. Like I love the ending of the show. I love the rest of it. There's some awesome stuff to come. But if the show just got cancelled off that episode, it would maybe be the coolest ending to anything ever.
But I don't think that moment, or the reveal that the angels are in fact, there is something very much living inside that armor. I don't think that moment would have worked quite as well if you didn't have that one very, very, very minor moment in the first episode, or maybe it's the second one, I can't remember, where the eye just looks at Shinji, and it's just that one very small seed that you lay in the first episode that basically tells you that there's more to the eye with these Avas than you could realize at the moment. So you kind of foreshadow these things in advance, so when they actually do happen, they don't feel like they've been written in at the last second. It feels like something that's definitely been it's definitely had its seeds. Yeah, exactly. Premeditated.
I mean, the first thing you see Unit 1 do is shelter Shinji from rubble. So from the get-go, you sort of know it has an independence to it and a sort of protective thing over Shinji.
Yes, but I don't think you quite know just how human it could be, or just how close it could be to us, as you do in that moment where the eye just changes direction and it's looking at towards Shinji. That's the
I
moment
mean, it has
for
a
me.
human arm at that point as well. Like we didn't even talk about it just grabs a part of the angel, grows a human arm.
Yeah.
Also, the
It's a
fight
great
scene
part.
itself is awesome. Like the big problem with 19 is the characters can teleport. There's no geography. Like people can just jump around somehow. But if you can ignore that point, the angel in HQ about to attack someone, like Unit 1 punching through the wall, going up the lift, which you've seen like tons of times. Having that fight like
Yes.
directly outside. Obviously, the tense moment, like we said, where it runs out of power. But yeah, just everything about the fight is incredible. Yeah, the only criticism of it is that people can just teleport.
I think, as Ethan said, with these designs, they almost remind him of the Titans in an Attack on Titan, which is airing now with its fourth season. I think they speak to how they sort of change the game. It is the reason why people see anime as not just like the kid cartoon thing, but like the space to explore like more adult sort of themes, and also have sick fight scenes where he rips the arm off an angel and then eats it, which is cool.
Eats the guy.
Yes, that's why it's a good show.
Yeah, when watching just the scene of Angel / Eva cannibalism, I'm just like, well, yeah, I wouldn't, I wasn't gonna predict this, at the end of episode 13. Foolish me thinking.
What did we even predict?
Well, I was predicting that geography teacher was gonna be the one that was like undermining Nerve, and it definitely seems like that's what he was doing. I enjoy that there's just when he is there like tending to his watermelons, he's just like they knew what I was doing, and so kind of told me to stop, and so now I'm just watering these watermelons, and then
He's
like
so
the next
chill.
scene you see with him, he's like
He's
in
absolutely a
a
Chad.
meeting with Shinji's dad, just being like, so what are you gonna tell the council then? It's like, why? Why is he
He can just
there?
teleport wherever he wants, so he gets there.
I mean, it's not even like how did he like physically end up there? Because like that was quite a few days later. That point, it's just like why was he there? What
I
how
guess
did he get a meeting with when he's sort of like being kept at arm's distance?
they're
I
trying.
don't know,
I think they're trying to play both sides of it. They're trying to like, well, if we know he's an agent, then we can sort of control what we tell him, and sort of lean into that. Then sort of, I don't know, like feed whatever mysterious organization he reports to like misinformation, or just keep up with the pretense. Or maybe he's just a cool guy. They like hanging out.
All right, so in terms of like mysteries and predictions and stuff, things that Sakaji is obviously a big kind of thing. So we learn that he is a spy for the Japanese government, and is kind of being kept at arm's length by Nerve. He's not allowed like on the command floor anymore. Although, as Johnny just said, he somehow had a one-to-one meeting with Commander Ikari. But yeah, so we know Kaji. There's a lot going on with him. You kind of see he has a lot of meetings. There's a scene at the end of one of the episodes where he episode 15, which again is a really good one, but we haven't talked about, which is kind of very much about relationships and his relationship with Misato. You kind of and they go out to a bar. You kind of have a lot about their relationship and their past, their present, and then it kind of ends with the professional relationship they have as well, where she's getting information from him, and he shows her basically Adam in the basement, which again we find out in episode the one 19, the one we were just talking about, where he tells Shinji, look, the Angel's goal is to get to the basement and combine themselves with this, and this will we're assuming trigger the third impact and kill everyone. So you got to stop that from happening. So that's another mystery we have solved. You kind of every episode kind of ends with like a little bit about what's going on in the basement. So I think 14, sorry, which kind of has Ray doing these tests. It ends with Unit 0 holding this mysterious spear in the basement. So you have that. I think 14 ends with her kind of in like this like vat in the basement. But I think they tell you that was for the dummy plug system, because when the dummy plug turns on, it has the name Ray on it. And episode 20, which we'll talk about kind of towards the end of the podcast, I think, that introduces a ton of new mysteries and foreshadows things and alludes to things. And also, like, I'm pretty sure you have a pretty good idea of like what's going on from that episode. There's a lot of shit in that one. So yeah, in terms of like mysteries that are ongoing and solved, I think that's pretty much all the ones in the episodes we've just watched.
I mean, it's interesting because Adam, when you first see it, I think it's that little fossil-looking thing that's just in a briefcase, and the next time you see it, it's like this beast that's like the upper half of a torso that's having these weird growths that are like humans kind of coming out of it. It's being stabbed by a big spear on a cross, which is interesting because I think it's called the Lance of Longinus, right? Which is like like the origins of that name is, it's the spear that they stabbed Jesus with to make sure he was dead after crucifying him. That's the sort of history to it. And I think it shows up earlier. There's a scene earlier in the show where Gendo is away and he's in Antarctica. And I don't know if they mention it by name, but they say like they're recovering something, and it's wrapped up, on a big boat, and it's like, hey, that's that big lance, that looks cool. Speaking of weapons, Asuka just has an axe in one episode. This has never been brought up by anyone,
and then it's just used to hit into the side of a building so she can climb up it as it begins falling into the weird black hole of the. Whatever number angel it was.
But yeah, good series of episodes.
Do you want to hear more predictions?
Well, before we do predictions, does anyone have anything to say about the episodes we just watched? I know we haven't talked about 15 very much, which is kind of the one where they go to the club. We have episode 20 as well. I think there's a lot of stuff in that. If you guys have anything to say about those ones.
The random unrelated thing I just want to talk about is I mentioned before the sort of the sci-fi word salad, and it is particularly over the top over these episodes, where you've got we hypothesize that Shinji's body has lost its ego boundary delineation and he's drifting in the entry plug in a quantum state.
Yeah, there are some great lines like that.
The makeup of the LCL in the entry plug has undergone a chemical change. It's now very similar to seawater on primitive Earth, the primordial soup. They turned my boy into soup. Yeah. So, there's so many just indecipherable, like, random words and phrases. I think entry plug is probably the phrase said the most throughout this series.
That's true, but at least you know what an entry plug is. You can see it. Whereas when they go on about like the patterns, someone says like, the pattern is what's it called? They say sepia. I'm like, is sepia a color? I thought it was an Instagram filter. But yeah,
it's like the I don't think you'll. I think this reference might be a bit lost on you, Tony, but it's what the first 50 minutes of Stalker is in. It's the color grading. It's like a whitewashed kind of browny black sort of a filter.
I see.
Sepia, yeah.
So the random math terms I notice is they're just when they're giving random orders to the computer tech people, one of the instructions is to inverse tangent graphs, which is they spell tangent differently, but it's just funny. It's what?
Do you think that just means draw the graph of arctan, or tan's the negative one of x?
Yeah.
That's what the inverse of a tangent graph must be.
Yeah.
They just flip the axes. It's like that. What was it? It's what's it called? Brass side. You know, if we fiddle with the numbers, the data starts doing this. It's going. That's how AVAs work, basically. No, but there is a great line about all the science stuff, though, that Misato says, which is like, what's the point of science if it can't even save a single life? Which I don't know. I feel like there's definitely that's a great line that just sells like how much she cares about Shinji. Yeah, is continually, you know, putting him in harm's way of being like, yo, you got punch these aliens, you know, in the face or whatever they are.
I do think these last bunch of episodes have actually demonstrated exactly that, Tony. I mean, whenever Shinji's in danger or it seems like she might lose him, her reaction is so. I mean, her. It feels like her list of priorities has save Shinji at the top and save planet Earth just below that. She obviously does care about him a great deal.
Yeah.
16 is basically directly kind of about that, as in like at the start of the episode, it's like, oh, you know, I'm gonna have a go at him when he gets back or whatever. It's pretty much like analyzing the dichotomy between kind of her as a commander and boss and her as kind of a carer and like mother figure. It's not Misato that brings Shinji back in that episode, although I guess technically it is because it's her operation or whatever. But 20, it literally is her presence that brings him back. And I guess I don't really want to go into why, because, you know, reasons. But yeah, so I like that across those two episodes, which again mirror each other very heavily, you kind of have this thing where she goes from in 16 kind of being a boss to kind of being concerned, and then in 20 it's literally her presence that kind of magically brings him back, and it's none of this like science. The operation's a complete failure, you know. It's kind of a human connection that actually pulls him back into the real world, turns him from primordial soup into a human again.
It's all about, you know, losing yourself into gaming, and then it's the women in your life that bring you back because you kind of want to have sex with them all.
But you also think they're all the same person because you're like low key kind of misogynistic, and it doesn't really matter about their separate personalities because they're kind of melded into one. And also there's like a lot about your mother in there. There's a lot of Freudian stuff. Like episode 16 is basically a return to the womb. When he's in his Ava, you know, there's that one song that plays whilst like a single drop like hits a pool of water, and that definitely symbolizes like this kind of Freudian kind of motherhood thing that definitely carries on as the show goes on, but is very present in both 16 and 20. Of inside the Ava is like inside of a mother. It's pretty weird, but it is one of like the big things that the show really wants you to notice.
And I think a lot about Misato liking Shinji is that she does sort of see a lot of herself in him, and especially, you know, a lot of like her shortcomings, which is what she says to Kaji. Is you know, she is constantly berated by Asuka for, you know, being a bit nice on Shinji, you know, just because he's, you know, the star pilot or whatever. But I think it's something deeper than that, where she sort of recognizes, you know, how Shinji is like the type of person who, you know, runs from his problems, who is, you know, quite a meek fellow. And I think she sort of recognizes that and is, I don't know, definitely has like a nurturing response, but almost kind of like she kind of hates it about herself as well.
And she has a similar kind of although slightly different relationship to Kaji. 15 is kind of really about that. Like, it's not done that subtly. I wish it was a little bit more subtle. But they kind of like just go like, oh, you remind me of my father, and I kind of hate my father, but I also kind of love him because he saved me. And she has that kind of relationship with Kaji. Again, that comes up at the end of 20, and in typical Misato messy fashion, there are two sides of her relationship where she kind of, Kaji is an antagonist working for the opposite team, but she also doesn't trust her own organization, so she's kind of using him for information, whilst kind of also being in love with him and having this shared kind of romantic history that stems from kind of deep-rooted trauma and stuff with parents, as everything in Evangelion does. So yeah, it's another kind of interesting dichotomy. 15 is really good. We haven't even talked about like the really awkward kiss or anything.
Yeah, that's definitely an awkward kiss where he has to hold his breath, which is not how you're meant to do it, obviously.
Like just the line, but I can't remember exactly word for word. But just like, would it be awkward to like kiss on the anniversary of your mother's death? Or it's just like,
yeah,
that's not the thing.
It's kind of going to ruin the mood, isn't it?
Yeah, Asuka's definitely up front like that, where she's just like expecting him to do it, you know, despite the fact that he just went and visited his mother's grave.
What do you three think about Asuka in these last 6 episodes?
But I think it's good. I think 15 is a very good demonstration that, like, even though you could say that there's like an objectifying lens to her, especially in episodes like Magma Diver, the show does kind of treat her like a child, and her kind of romantic whims and like wanting to be like sexually mature and an adult is definitely like viewed as childish, and I think 15 kind of highlights that the most. I also think that her kind of personality just works better because she's doing worse. Like, I think the idea of having someone who is like very narcissistic and led by like ego and desire to be the best, suddenly being confronted with the fact that they aren't the best, like in episode 16, and they're kind of being petty, results in Shinji kind of being lost. I think it's really interesting, like the fact that she's just constantly failing. Like, she hasn't done a good thing in a number of episodes now in terms of piloting her Ava, and her sync numbers are just kind of going down and down. I think it's what compels me to the character. Episode 22 is the main reason I really like her, because that's a great Asuka episode. But I think there's signs of that here, that she's really kind of struggling, and I think I feel sorry for her, you know, because like all she wants is to be the best, and when you're like not being the best, she has nothing. She's just kind of miserable now. But I mean, I'm not the one that disliked her, so what do you guys think?
I think it's kind of interesting that you mentioned all those things, Harry, because they are true. But when you said those things, it almost came as a surprise to me. I kind of went, oh yeah, no, that is right. They did do those things with Asuka. Because to me, she's taken a massive backseat in the last 6 episodes, and I just haven't noticed her presence. The only times I remember her doing anything in the last 6 episodes, which I know is wrong, but it feels like it's just the scenes where she's talking about how much she wishes Kaji would notice her. And I just don't think there's anything more to it than that at the moment. Until you mention those things where you do say that, and I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? No, that is kind of interesting. I hadn't really even thought about that. It is, at the moment, she is kind of failing in the one area of her world that she wants to just completely thrive in, and that is good. But I think it says something that all of these characters are going through very quite big steps at the moment, and they're going through things that are changing them and turning them into different people, or at least realizing very profound things about themselves. But all I'm realizing about Asuka at the moment is she just wants Kaji to notice her, and not much more to it than that. From my point of view, I had just forgotten that they had spent time trying to make things go downhill for her. So I am looking forward to episode 22, because you're right, it does make me a bit more sympathetic to her now that you've mentioned those things, because they are true, but it's still not enough to feel like I'm in her footsteps quite just yet.
I mean, I think there is a really nice moment. Well, I say nice, it's quite sad, but it's set up early where she asks to borrow Misato's lavender perfume for the date she is set up on with some extra that we never see. And later on notices that Kaji is wearing that same perfume because he was hanging out with Misato, you know, eyes emoji. And there's like that sort of moment of realization where, you know, she realizes that she is like almost not like, she definitely like competing on a different level, you know, like Kaji does not see her that way, the way he sees Misato. She is like very understandably kind of upset. And there's the line where Misato, noticing this, says to Shinji, it's like, oh, Shinji's complaining about Asuka not being about or whatever, and Misato says, like, you really don't understand women, do you? Which is, again, one of the through lines of Shinji just not understanding women, and in broader terms, just other people, which is, what he has that conversation with Kaji about when he's growing the watermelons, there's a river between men and women. You can't cross it.
I think it's important, those scenes with Kaji. I thought there were two, but there's actually three kind of across episodes, kind of 17, 18, 19 maybe. And I think it's important because Shinji kind of grew up without a father because Gendo was kind of so absent. His mother's gone. We know he's with a teacher. He kind of has friends, but also not really. So having like a kind of, you could call him positive or not, a positive male kind of a role model, it's important. I think their dialogue scenes are really good. There's almost a through line through them where he first introduces him to the patch, and then the second one he kind of talks about men and women, like you say, and the third one is he kind of lays out, you need to decide what you're going to do. I really like it. It's one of the most underrated aspects of the show, the kind of mini little relationship that those two characters have. I really like it.
Yeah, it almost makes me like the geography teacher.
Oh, I love him. He's definitely a champ.
He's had a good few episodes, you got to admit.
I think I'm with Johnny. I think I'm more on the side where I'm just not too keen on him, but he has good things about him.
Yeah, he just is a massive dick. I don't know. I mean, the watermelons do a good job of trying to like bring it back, but at the end of the day, he's still a dick.
Pathetic trait, according to Jonathan.
He's grown melons.
It's just the fact that he's there watering these watermelons as like. Yeah, this
it's just like apocalyptic
final
event.
battle, is just happening in the background.
He's like, what am I gonna do? You might as well water.
There goes Ray with a nuke. Wait, with what do people think about Ray? Because obviously, 14 is like half the episode is pretty much just pointless. It's a recap. But the second half is almost episode 16, but from Ray's point of view. We get this kind of like really impressive sequence where she's talking about her own existence. You get that shot, which is just directly used from The Last Jedi, of a line of Rays questioning their identity.
Lines of Ray, yeah.
And also, I think she's involved in a lot of the mysteries of the show, so I was just wondering what you guys think about Ray. Have you got any predictions?
I think she should get in more tubes. I don't know why, but I just the first like slow reveal of just like this weird system of tubes, and then just like Ray is in the tube. I was like, I don't know why I needed this, but Ray is in the tube. More Ray in tube.
More Rays
Put all
in
the characters in
tubes.
tubes.
That's what the entry plugs are.
Just how
The
Shinji's
tubes.
there, just staring up at it and just giving a weird smile. Just yes, everyone in tubes.
The tubes underneath a big brain thing as well. Like, what's that about? Anyway.
Again, maybe it's just me, but I feel like these last 6 episodes or so have been so centered around putting Shinji in the spotlight and improving him as a character and his relationships between others, that I feel like some other characters have suffered compared to the first 12 episodes. And I think I don't see certain characters that I think are pivotal to the story as much as I did in the first 12. Like, again, Ray, I remember seeing her in scenes, but it says something that I've watched all of these episodes so recently, but I can't... With her and Asuka, I can't remember anything memorable or a moment where I felt like, this is a new side to this character that I've not yet seen, or just something more happening to them. It's really been mostly, for me, Shinji and Masato. So maybe it's just me, and I just have a bad memory, but I don't know.
Well, with Ray, you get the big payoff of her in the tube, as Johnny said. There's a lot more where that came from. And the reveal that the dummy plug system is kind of Ray, or is made from Ray. There's that. There's a lot of her kind of questioning her own existence. There's that line of Ray's kind of image and that entire bit. There's the line when she goes to blow herself up, when she says, "Don't worry, I'm expendable." There's more of me, which is kind of important. Obviously, she comes back, and also the in episode 20 you have a flashback to when Shinji was younger, and you see his dad when he actually had a smile on his face, and before he was born, that's probably why he had a smile on his face. Talking about if it's a boy, he's called Shinji. If it's a girl, we'll call it Rei. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of little bits of foreshadowing and kind of character building with what's going on with Rei.
Yeah, I do think it is hard to sort of really explore her though, because her deal is that she is a very like sort of alien, distant person. So it's kind of hard to have more human moments with her. But she does a good job of being in those end credit scenes, or basically end credit scenes, where she's, I don't know, dragging a big lance underground to some mysterious underground facility to you know, stab Adam in the heart with it, because she just, you know, she's like very very devout to, you know, Gento. Although there are the odd moments where she, you know, through like the sort of school life segments, you know, she comes to, you know, like Shinji a bit more when he comes and like cleans up her trash, you know. There's a good line
where she's like got a rag, and then he later tells her that like you'd make a good mother, and it's like the first time she actually reacts to anything anyone says, pretty much. That she blushes at that.
Oh, that's true. I had forgotten about that.
Oh my god, Shinji is just... The fact that that's the only way he seems to be able to judge women is like how good you think they'd be housewives.
He's just a MILF hunter at the end of the day, Jono.
Yeah, with Masato, he's just like, oh, at first I wasn't sure why you didn't have a partner, but then I was like, oh yeah, no, you can't keep a house. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
That's why I don't bother remembering
I'm beginning to like
these
you.
parts, because I know Jonathan's got a like a catalogue of all of the moments where the male characters behave like douchebags to the female characters.
Yeah. The other sort of mentionable bit is so when Shinji is tidying up, his friend, who ends up being the fourth children, is just there being like, oh no, I won't tidy up because, you know, I'm a guy. That's not what men do. It's like, okay, dude, you do it yourself. And it was something my brother sort of said, which is when he's like complaining that he, like, there's no one to cook him food, and then the class rep is like, I can cook you food. My brother was just like, well, yeah, he could cook food. I was like, weren't you listening to before when he was like, I cannot clean because I am a man? You think that's someone who can cook?
He's got to spend all those times, you know, shooting hoops, you know, and working on his mixtape. But I think there is a good point though, that like in that scene where Shinji is cleaning up, he says like, you know, what's he say? He says Misato doesn't like men like that, you know. And I think that like almost through Misato and Kaji, he is getting these like I forget the word, like replacement, like father and mother figures, you know, that are sort of helping him grow, you know, because I think part of a lot of Shinji's character is how he almost like absorbs, you know, traits from other people. Like you notice that he becomes a lot more like sarcastic and quippy, like, you know, complaining about Misato being a slob whenever once, you know, Asuka comes around, and then he sort of comes into his own, you know, with the episode 19 where he's like taken Kaji's advice to heart and punches an angel really hard and eats it. Interesting fact that I just noticed here. Episode 20 of The Shape of Hearts and Humans, which is the one where he is stuck as soup and then has to come out of the soup and be a human again, was released on Valentine's Day in 1996. Isn't that nice?
That is nice.
It's also called Weaving a Story 2 Oral Stage, which is maybe the best name of an episode.
No, it's not, because I was literally... I've got Netflix open up now because I want to find the best episode name, because there is one that made me laugh out loud when I read it. Let me see if I can find it.
The episodes do have two names, though.
Yeah,
that's the
it's
thing.
very strange. But I'm talking about the episode name that they give halfway through the episode. One of those is the funniest thing I've ever read, and I'm going to find the episode now. Let me see.
There's one that's really long.
Could be that one.
What she said, don't make others suffer for your personal hatred. That's 12.
Those women longed for the touch of others' lips and thus invited their kiss.
That's it. That's the one that made me laugh out loud. That one's amazing. What episode is that, Harry?
That's episode 15, second title.
Just the reused shots they have of the topless, nippleless female characters just leaning in and just like sensually whispering, just like, "Hey, you find us hot, you want to fuck us, right?"
It's not what they were saying.
I have nothing to say about that, but I just feel I have to bring it up. Yeah.
They say you want to become one with me.
It's kind of it comes back from the thing in episode 16 where it's like he talks about like there are versions of you inside your heart. And he doesn't necessarily hate himself, but he hates the version of himself inside other people, like basically how other people are perceiving him, which is kind of like a big thing about his self-hatred. And I guess in that moment where he's no longer human, but is essentially, if you're taking the metaphor of like Ava as like return to like the mother's womb, because there's obviously a connection there, in that she died under mysterious circumstances to do with the Evangelions. You have a thing where he's returned to a state of kind of not really, almost he's not himself anymore. He's more than that. He's kind of taken on other people's perceptions of him and his existence. It's like a very weird concept. I'm butchering it here. But I think it's not just like, do you want to have sex with me, but do you want to become me? Do you want our existences to kind of just be as one? And there's nothing bad, and it's just we are primordial soup. We're just LCL together. It's pretty much the first time that concept is really like elaborated on episode 20, and that it's definitely a thing going forward as well.
Yeah, I think that sort of concept is one of the main through lines of the show. It started in the earlier episode where it's the hedgehog's dilemma. People want to get close to each other, but their spikes keep stabbing each other. Wouldn't that be easier if you were just the same, just made of soup? So should we get to predictions or?
My predictions, I'll really just have kind of one at the moment, which is to do with Shinji's mum, because I'm guessing, because she seems to have been involved in the previous time. Well, I think that she's involved in the previous time someone reached 400% synchronization. Because the fact that there doesn't seem to be anything left of her would track quite well with the idea that she's soup. The idea that she's like a soup that's part of Unit 01, might be why that one seems to be so kind of alive by itself.
It would also work quite well with the idea that Commander Ikari wanted his own son to pilot one of the Avas. There has to be some kind of purpose and reason behind that. It can't just be because he's 14 years old. It'd be an incredible coincidence if his son was one of the best candidates for the Avas and he's in charge of Nerve.
Yeah, it would make sense as well, like, why the first thing we see that Ava unit do is, like, protect Shinji from falling rubble. It's kind of like a motherly instinct type thing. And that other motherly instinct thing where you eat the thing that's trying to beat up your son. That's one of Freud's ideas, right?
I think Ava Unit 1 would make a good mother,
You've got that song that plays quite a lot. The operatic piece, which there's always like that bit of water that drips. You actually see Shinji's mother in 20. She's got like her face scratched out. It's like a montage of like the women in his life, and then it's like the faceless mother. You also kind of you learn a couple of things just to do with his mother. Like you learn that apparently his father killed his mother, which just comes up like as a piece of throwaway dialogue in 16. And Shinji's like, no, he didn't. And then when he's kind of attacking him in his head in 20, Also, a recurring motif is like Shinji in a train with like really like high saturation. He's got like a big head for some reason. He kind of accuses his father.
I laugh every time.
Because he's angry at his father. He's like, "You murdered mother." Also revealed that in episode 1, he went there to kind of berate his father and say no, but it was because of Rei that he had to. The fact that he said Rei is like a mother. His father was going to call his potential daughter Rei, and the fact that there's a lot of fucking overlapping shit going on in this episode. Just spending time in someone's head, revisiting his memories. You see his mother smiling like an image. You see like a glimpse of a contact experiment, which Johnny mentioned just before. I mean, you're going to learn a lot more of that in 21, because 21 is we're going back to the past. But yeah, a lot of that kind of comes up in 20 for the first time, for sure.
I don't really know what to predict with Neon Genesis Evangelion. It's such a it does so well at feeling like it's moving in a completely random direction, but still feels like well held together, if that makes sense. Like, I still think it's quite difficult to know exactly where we're headed, but it still feels I still know that when I get there, it won't be awful. It won't be completely random. So, I actually don't really have any predictions. I still want to know. I still think my main question still stands. 6 episodes ago, the main thing that I want to know is where the angels come from, and that's still the main thing that I want to know. But I also don't care still if they don't tell us, because it'd be cooler if they didn't. It's also nice to know what Adam actually is as well.
Yeah, well, I imagine especially if the next episode is like a past flashback episode, that's probably going to be dealing with the sort of second impact stuff, which is going to involve
Jonathan,
Adam.
does it still annoy you as much as it annoys me when they say like the third children and the fourth children and stuff? Yeah.
Have we worked out whether that's a sub/dub thing or?
It's in both. It's in the subtitles, and it's when dubbed they say children. I don't know what it is about it, why they made that decision. One thing I really do want to know though, because it never gets answered, is what the fuck happened to Unit 4? Because it just disappears off screen. They're like, oh, it just went, and that never pays off. I don't think anyway. Maybe I'm stupid. I don't think it ever pays off. It's like it just vanishes.
There is one Ava that they justify its disappearance for by saying, "Oh, it was like it was swallowed up by an angel similar to the zebra one," right?
Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they think happened.
So is that not enough of an explanation?
I don't know. I often think that this show is like pretty good at introducing something and then paying it off. It just never pays off. And I think also there's a lot of kind of quick dialogue, and it's a confusing enough thing because you're introducing a new pilot and a new Unit 3, but in the same episode, Unit 4, but it's not the fourth children, has vanished. And it's so easy, like a little bit with Kaji stuff as well. You can just, when you don't show something and you just kind of tell it, you can easily get your wires crossed. It's one of those things where like it's just that like it adds unnecessary confusion for me, although it doesn't really distract. The big plot hole is obviously that they can teleport in episode 19, and the fact that literally no one tells Shinji. And there's seemingly no reason why no one tells Shinji as well. They should just tell him it's Toji.
Yeah, I honestly, it'd be one thing if it was classified information for most of the characters, but it's the fact that everyone seems to know apart from him. And it's like, well, if Asuka knows, then why the hell has no one told Shinji? It just doesn't make any sense. And they're so worried about his reaction.
I mean, Asuka only knows because she randomly burst into geography teacher's office and then just like read what was on his screen. Rei knows, well, because she's sort of in the upper echelon, such as it is.
Yeah, I think Shinji was just going to be told by Misato, but Misato couldn't stomach the idea of doing it and put it off.
I don't see why. I'm not,
because she's a flawed being, Ethan.
Well, no, the reason is because
say.
At the end you can have the payoff of like, oh, it's him, oh no, and then you can have a breakdown. That's like narratively the reason. But I don't think they justify it.
No,
there's so many moments where someone could tell.
Yeah, that's the point I'm trying to say. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't tell Shinji if Asuka knows and Rei knows, because I just don't get it. I don't get it, and it's not that Misato's a flawed human being. It's just Shinji should have been told. And it doesn't, and I don't see what the worst thing in the world would be if he had been told. That's the difference.
I mean, he didn't want to destroy the Angel / Ava either way. You know how "Fly Me to the Moon" is in the ending song,
Yeah.
right? Or it is, but it's not in the Netflix version. They play like a slowed down kind of piano version of it.
Yeah,
as,
that's
like, the
not there in
background
the
music.
Netflix version.
It's not there either. Oh, but it's
Yeah,
so
the scene
good.
is just the scene is a lot worse.
What
Because
scene are you
of it.
talking about?
There's a scene where Misato is talking to Kaji where she's drunk and he's taking her home, and in that version with the secret version I have stolen from Nerve headquarters, it has "Fly Me to the Moon" played, which is the ending song, but it plays it like in that scene as well, which is a great like sort of like somber like piece to have for this like intense like essentially like confession of Misato to Kaji of how she feels about herself, which is a shame.
Yeah, that scene
But,
is completely
well.
silent musically.
That's
Yeah, it's just kind of like ambient noise.
Probably
in
crickets
the,
chirping,
in the-
something like that.
fuck's sake. Couldn't even get some Kevin MacLeod like free tunes in the background. Well, yeah, but I think I really like the ending, the song, the fact that it's a new cover of it every time from like a different voice actor, or sometimes it's just like an instrumental cover of it. It's really cool.
So hopefully the Blu-ray release adds it back in.
Yeah. Other weird Netflix quirks is, I think it's episode 16 that's just all kind of blurry.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They lost the original negative for it, I think. So it's like really low quality.
Let me check my version of episode 16, because I think my Secret Nerve version might have not even been that bad, I'll be honest.
Can I tell you guys something that annoys me a little bit? It's when they, I mean, it obviously makes sense. Like, it is just me that will be annoyed by this. But it's the fact that they say nerve in a weird way because it's spelled N-E-R-V. It's like nerve. Nerve.
Yeah, that's... I see what you're saying. It is kind of... I don't know. I didn't notice episode 16 being blurry. But yeah, they definitely do say nerve strangely, which, they don't in the subtitled or version. God, the Evangelions. They're so cool. Two other things I want to say. The brand that they use for all the doorbells is called Pin Pon because it's the sound they make. I think that's the most adorable piece of set design I've ever seen. And there's also a mug.
The cat mug.
Fucking Ritsuko has, which is like this fucking derpy cartoon cat with cat scribbled onto it. It's one of those throwaway things, but it's a cat. I can't not love it. It's great. I think either cat or the image of Shinji next to the Star of David that is his dad should be the thumbnail for this episode.
I know what's gonna happen in the last episode. It's gonna look like everything's over for Nerv, and the Avas and the Angels are gonna win, and then out of nowhere, Saitama just walks onto the battlefield, and it's just him and an angel, and he just hits it, and it goes down in one go, and he saves Earth. I can see it now.
No, it's gonna be Shinji in Unit 1 is gonna go mad. Then Saitama comes, punches, but then it just punches off the restraining armor, and it smiles and is like, "Ha, that was just to hold my power back," and then they go all out.
Man, you guys should write your own anime. We've got it down to a beat. I think we should go before I have come up with more things to say.
Before we all synchronize and become primordial soup.
Let's think of something mysterious and dramatic to leave you on a cliffhanger with. Finally. American Spanish has been discovered.